Brilliant. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the very first webinar of 2026 for the Online Dating and Discovery Association. Delighted to welcome today a very special guest who's going to be talking to us about frictionless age assurance. We know that's an incredibly important topic that many people are interested in following the implementation of the Online Safety Act. So, Julian, I just wondered if you'd be kind enough to introduce yourself first of all, and then I'll just do a brief bit of housekeeping and then we'll move on to kind of the key questions for today.
Thank you so much for having me, Simon, and great to be here. So I'm Julian. I head the OpenAge Initiative, which is something that company KID started. I'm a co-founder of KID. And KID was set up to help organizations deal with how to comply with the various regulations in jurisdictions around the world. But in order to create an age-appropriate experience, you need to first have an age signal that you can actually trust. And what we saw was the emergence of fragmented regulations around the world, that this was becoming a ever more complex problem. And what we proposed with the OpenAge Initiative is a framework for relying parties to be able to reuse age signals and essentially address some of the big concerns that we'll be talking about in some detail during this conversation. And so really looking forward to sharing and obviously, hopefully we can make this very interactive and take questions from participants as we go along.
Fantastic. And you're calling us or dialing in today from Washington, so at the other side of the pond, where I think it's a little bit colder than it here is in the UK.
There's been a little bit of snow here. Yes, there's a lot of the age verification industry gathered today in Washington because the FTC is putting together a big panel that after this you guys can jump onto the link and follow live. They actually, of course, just after I'd made all of my arrangements and plans to get there, switched to fully virtual. But so just before this call, I was listening to the chair of the FTC, Ferguson, lay out his plans and how the FTC was looking at the growing need of age assurance. And I think it's just a further confirmation to what many of the people here already know, which is there is clearly an accelerated movement towards a need for more and more age assurance. And I think now the problematic is not, is there or is there not going to be age assurance? And as we've seen, OSA in the UK and then Australia and months after next, Brazil and 25 state laws in the US, it's happening. The question is, how can we do it the right way? How can we make this frictionless? And how can we alleviate some of the pain points and natural concerns that people have when it comes to age assurance?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I know I'm going to be joining that workshop as well after today's webinar. So, before we kick off, just a little bit of housekeeping for everyone who's joining us today. We are obviously recording this session. We do encourage you to raise questions to ask Julian. Please use the Q&A function, and I will be monitoring that through the webinar today as well. So, please make use of that function, and let's see. We're interested in hearing thoughts from people joining us today. So, Julian, I just perhaps wanted to start off, perhaps worth just reminding ourselves, really, we are in the UK in the kind of implementation phase of the Online Safety Act, lots and lots of key milestones coming up. And I guess it can be a little bit confusing about what needs to be done, by when and by whom. I just wonder if you can give us a bit of a lowdown about what it means for firms, particularly in our sector.
Yeah, so I think what we've seen is that there are, a number of phases to the Online Safety Act. Obviously, the big one that has taken place was the first wave of mandated verification. But what we have seen is that Ofcom is now in a phase of making sure that the companies that are supposed to be doing age assurance are doing so the right way and that they're using highly effective methods. There is a broadening of the number of sectors and scopes that are going to be caught up. So I think OSA is really an interesting one just because, Ofcom and the UK in general are thought leaders in the space, and I think other regulators around the world tend to track very closely what is happening in the UK. And what we're seeing is that each regulator around the world is kind of learning from the other. And so there were lessons taken from OSA that came into play in Australia, and now again in Brazil, and obviously a lot of debates around the world. And we're seeing emergence of new data privacy laws and laws specifically targeting protection of children and ensuring that content that is designed for adults really only has adults on there. And so I think, you know, we can talk about OSA because I think a lot of the people here are in the UK, but it is really just the tip of the spear of
Yes.
what is actually taking place. And most services are global in nature, and it really is this fragmentation and slightly different approaches, and everyone determining individually in their jurisdiction what is considered a correct form of age assurance and when it should happen, which is creating a mass level of confusion. I think there is one incredible advantage in the UK compared to other countries, is that the Ofcom is really very ready to engage. And I see them at conferences around the world that I attend, where they're just there explaining what is their approach, what are the cases in which it is required, how they are looking at this. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for dialogue and for clarification. And I think through all of the papers that they're putting out and their ongoing communication, that they really want to make sure that Ofcom doesn't write the laws; they make sure that they are adhered to. But I think that they are very much in a posture of wanting to engage with industries that are caught up in these regulations and trying to clarify, exactly what they are looking to do.
Yeah, and I think echoing that, we found Ofcom to be incredibly proactive in their engagement with our sector. They joined us at our conference last year, and we're participating in a number of panels, which was fantastic. We've done webinars with Ofcom as well, but they've taken time to explain what the new duties mean, and particularly around age assurance and the sort of approach that they've taken there. And strange enough, I was with Ofcom this morning, and I think one of the things that I keep saying is really important is Ofcom talk about outcomes focused regulation, i.e. this is about trying to find how to solve, or rather solutions to these major problems, rather than the approach of getting there. And I think that's something that's being reinforced all the time with engagement with Ofcom, which is great. I just wanted to touch on one thing, because you started to talk very much there about this is age assurance is something that's not just in the UK. Clearly we've talked about some of the things and the number of states in the US now that are implementing state level legislation, which creates a challenge in itself. But of course, shining a light on Europe, we've got the forthcoming Digital Fairness Act, and many of our members and those joining us today will operate across multiple jurisdictions. How on earth can you prepare for these various new rules that are coming out? And I wonder if you can perhaps provide any comments on what is going to be happening in Europe and also in the US as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are a lot of complexities that are there. I think in general, step one and what regulators are looking for everywhere is best efforts. And I think that there is an understanding that that you aren't going to get everything right 100% of the time. And truthfully, regulators are not trying to just find like the one thing that you have done wrong. What they're really looking for are best efforts for compliance. And that starts with making sure that if you have a service where children might be exposed, it cannot have content that would be deemed age inappropriate for that age group. And so age assurance is really getting proper age assurance in place is step one towards compliance. Now, there are a lot of edge cases and a lot of things and a lot of areas of confusion and do I need to do like a double blind architecture in France or Germany or Italy, and how am I going to implement these various things? But I think the one thing that we are realizing is that the idea of burying one's head in the sand and just saying we cannot do it or we won't do it is probably not a path. Now, but it isn't necessarily as complicated as people think, which is, let's say you are a service that has an account-based system, and that you need to and you're billing for that service, and so there's a credit card relationship with that service provider. Well, in many cases, you might have already reached a level of age assurance on that user base. So now the question is if people can navigate through the content prior to entering something like a credit card, have they reached the right level? Are people being exposed? So I think these are things where you need to do like internal risk assessments. But I would say in terms of preparation, I think figuring out how you can, ensure that you have some base levels of age assurance in place, or a process that you can explain how you do not have digital youth or minors exposed to content that regulators might frown upon is probably the most important step to address today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, certainly Ofcom have been speaking to several of our members just to explore what process they've put in place and how they work in practice, which, it's good to see them reflect that positively as well. Before we kind of move on to the next question, I just wanted to pick up on something that was announced yesterday by the parent company of Pornhub. Now, of course, that's the adult sector. But I just wondered if there was anything you wanted to comment on that, because I think that's a really interesting situation where they've effectively decided to withdraw from the UK market primarily because of the legislation as opposed to the approach from the regulator. But I mean, is this? I mean, again, just welcome your thoughts on what that means and whether you think this might start, a change in the way that others may respond to some of the rules coming out from Ofcom and government.
So I think we've seen a variety of approaches, particularly in the adult entertainment industry, in terms of how to deal with these various regulation and age assurance mandates that have taken place. And ALO in particular, I believe, have taken a position. They did it in a handful of states in the US of just saying we are going to geo-block that area. It's interesting. So just this last week, OpenAge Initiative announced something that I think is quite groundbreaking and a really meaningful moment, which is that Free Speech Coalition joined the OpenAge Initiative. So Free Speech Coalition, as I'm sure most of you will be aware, was the party to the Free Speech Coalition versus Paxton decision that was taken at the Supreme Court. This was really one of the landmark decisions that took place last year, and it's what triggered the flurry of state laws that we have seen based on the precedent that the Supreme Court established in that decision, which is saying that it actually isn't necessarily a infringement on First Amendment rights, and that there are situations where age assurance can and should be required. And Free Speech Coalition has obviously been a fierce critic of age assurance mandates. But what's interesting is that if you actually listen carefully to the position of Free Speech Coalition, it isn't that they are saying that age assurance in itself is bad. What they're saying is that, and they're saying that, they don't want children on their members' websites as the advocacy group for the entire entertainment adult industry, which, by the way, we're talking about hundreds of billions of visits annually in the sector. So, and what they have been saying, and I think, with some reason, is that there are some real concerns that need to be addressed in terms of the privacy of users, in terms of the amount of friction that this creates on user base and the cost that all of this represents. And I think it's worth diving in to each of
Definitely.
these. And so what we're seeing is that there are different approaches. So as Pornhub says that they are removing themselves from the market in the UK, you are seeing that the advocacy organization for the entire adult entertainment industry, is embracing OpenAge. And this is a really interesting moment, which is they have not reduced their level of concern with the age verification industry in general. What they were excited about when they met with us and with OpenAge is that they felt that there is finally a pragmatic, better path forward towards the title of, I guess, of this webinar, towards frictionless age assurance. And for them, the principles upon which we built the OpenAge Initiative and the age key technology, which underpins what OpenAge is enabling, really satisfied for the Free Speech Coalition a lot of it just alleviated the many concerns that they had around this. And so can dive into it a little bit, but just as a top line, that this is a imminently privacy preserving approach. And why? Because it is essentially the age key is a pass key that a user saves on their device. So it's a user-centric solution where the user controls their own data. They present this, it is completely frictionless. It is just, it's like a phone unlock essentially to get through on a website. It means that you don't have to redo verifications over and over again, which means that you're not uploading biometrics or digital IDs over and over again. And you can simply, go through, which obviously also reduce the cost. So it's 95% faster than a traditional age verification because it's just presenting a passkey. But I think particularly of interest for the adult entertainment industry, but we believe this is a fundamental right for all users everywhere, regardless of the sites, is that this ensures that there is no trackability and no traceability of a user. So the architecture on which this is built means that you cannot see where the user has used their age key. And the relying party cannot know who that user is. So you have this complete privacy first approach, which enables people to show an age credential in a frictionless manner, and be able to just provide the information that is required, which is, am I over the threshold age for being able to access a site without having to upload your biometrics or digital IDs? And I think when OSA came out in the UK, we saw online concerns from the public, which were just like, hold on, why am I having to share my data? This is going to be some big, database that is going to be built, and there's going to be some breaches. And we have seen, not on age assurance front, but examples where companies that have had to, build databases of information around their users, and those things time and again at some point get breached through some third party or something. And so I think it is quite natural for the general public and civil society to have legitimate, deep concerns around how and where is this information stored? What does it mean in terms of my privacy? And I think a lot of the opponents of age assurance have really highlighted this as one of the major issues and risks that are linked to age assurance. Now, the serious age assurance providers have pretty good processes, and like the data is processed and deleted right away. In the case of KID, we actually use on-device solutions for first-time age verification. So there is no image or data that actually leaves the device. All of the processing, the analysis of the facial age estimation is done on the device itself. So that is completely privacy preserving. And obviously, the ultimate in privacy preserving is age key and what OpenAge is providing, because that means there simply is no personal identifiable information recorded anywhere ever at any time. And there is no database, there is no central database of users. And so, if you want absolute privacy, you don't even take the risk of uploading and deleting something. You just don't have it in the first place. And I think we think that these approaches are really fundamental to building the trust that the users of services such as dating services need to have to say, like, hold on, you already have so much information about me. And if I have a third party that I have never heard of be your third party verification provider, how am I going to trust that that isn't going to come out and be a privacy and security risk for me?
Yeah, and the reason I was just interrupting there is, I mean, when we looked at the slide of the day, the thing that struck me, these are exactly the issues that our members have expressed to us as a trade association, and that privacy one is really interesting. And the reason that it's interesting is for exactly as you said there, there are concerns, particularly with some of the smaller platforms. We talked, and we talked to users and obviously government messaging around, be careful who you share data or information with, particularly sensitive data. And there are real concerns that people are reluctant to provide any of that information elsewhere. So coming up with an approach that is both secure, it's privacy preserving is really crucial, and hopefully address that. The question I was just going to ask in relation to that is, how do platforms in our sector kind of educate users, kind of provide that reassurance? What can they do? Because this for me is a big barrier, and one that we're really conscious of.
Yep. No, so I think it's, and what we've seen is countries where there has been a lot of communication and where platforms have got ahead of this and really communicated with their users. Things have gone more smoothly than when users are suddenly landed with, a age assurance mandate or an age gate that they didn't have before. So I think how to explain incredibly transparently to your users what you are doing it, why you are doing it, how you are doing it, and what the process is super important. I think the reason why, we announced OpenAge just back in November, and very rapidly we got like a lot of traction around this, and Meta very publicly engaged with OpenAge and is rolling out age keys across all of their services. Because I think that platforms such as Meta and then pragmatic people trying to sort the solution out, like Free Speech Coalition, but also dozens of other platforms that are clients of KID that are rolling out and adopting age keys, are all recognizing that if you can provide a path for your users to authenticate and verify their age on a shared common framework that is completely privacy preserving, such as age keys, then that in itself builds trust. And the beauty of interoperability is that the ecosystem builds on itself. And so the more people see something, then it becomes exactly like, and this is why we built this on passkeys, which is the same way that users now in, billions of times a year are using passkeys instead of passwords. But it was a learning curve, right? First time I saw a passkey, I'm like, what is that? And I think now naturally most people that will log into their Gmail account will use a passkey, because it is now understood that that is a far more secure path, and prevents anti-phishing. It is kind of also, a more secure way because it requires the user consent at each time. That user consent can happen just the same way you are with like Apple Pay. So it's very fast and very easy, but it is actually control. And I think that user centricity is also something that the platforms want to communicate. And so I think that when platforms are looking at implementing a solution for age verification, they need to be really rigorous in terms of using only methods that are highly certified, that are used by other large platforms. Like in the UK, Yoti is, a very strong verification provider that is widely known and adopted. KID, we cover, many of the largest platforms. There are others. We just announced at OpenAge yesterday that three new very large verification providers that are some of the most trusted and biggest in the world have joined the initiative. So we had previously announced that Socure, which is a massive company, had joined the OpenAge initiative. And yesterday we announced that Persona, Encode, and Veritad have also joined the initiative. So today, if you want age keys, you can obviously go to KID that can help as part of their orchestration provide age keys. You can also go to Persona, Encode, or Veritad, get the same age keys. Or you are your own orchestrator and you manage your own flows, in which case you can go directly to OpenAge, openageinitiative.org or agekey.org, where you can create and test your own age key right now. And that gives you the ability to bring that in. And again, it sounds like I'm like selling, OpenAge or HKeys. It's not a source of, revenue for us. It is what we are trying to push forward is interoperability and shared frameworks. We at OpenAge just want to see the solution emerge, and we're happy with any approach that guarantees privacy of users and the needs and rights of the users. So, and those go to the rights of a child to be able to experience age-appropriate experiences on the internet, but also the rights and freedoms of adults to not have to have anything impede on their privacy and their freedoms to be able to go on the sites that they see fit. And so we see the emergence of digital IDs, e-wallets, various wallets from various providers, MDLs, and other forms of true age signals that, or a lot of debate around should it be at the OS level or the App Store level. All of these things are good. Every single approach has, some advantages and some drawbacks. The reality is that users navigate in a cross-platform world, and the issue becomes when you have divergent signals that are coming in, and you have a signal that is coming in from one platform that is different from another platform. And what OpenAge wanted to do as an industry-led initiative and something that is open to all verification providers and platforms is a path forward that is pragmatic and saying, listen, we're not going to go for another 3, 4, 5 years while everybody tries to figure out on a government level or on a big tech level. What you want is an independent third party that can kind of be an honest broker, where our role is simply to carry the signal, not to interpret it, and not to create more barriers, an ongoing tax and monetization of users through verification, but something that actually addresses what the core problem is, which is how can I have good data, reliable data, data that I can trust, data that is regulatory supported, that gives me as a platform the ability to age verify my users without creating huge amounts of churn, dissatisfaction, concerns from the users. And that requires innovative approaches that really understand what the pain points are of the platforms, understand what the pain points are of the users, and figure out these bridges that can actually create a more frictionless path forward.
Brilliant. And I'm glad you got this slide up here to about reusability, and you've touched on interoperability. As you mentioned quite rightly a few moments ago, people have a number of different online accounts. We know the evidence suggests that generally people sign up to at least 2 dating apps. Same with social discovery apps as well. Are you able to tell us any more, in a bit of detail, how that works in practice, that interoperability?
Yep. So interoperability is really at the key of what the future of age assurance needs to be. Without interoperability, we are replicating what happened with cookie banners, but on a vastly more painful scale. And it will simply break the internet. And so the idea, you know, people will navigate like 150 different sites. The idea that they are going to be, and if you're just looking at the scale, right? Whatever, 7 billion people on the planet, and just like visits to, Chat GPT alone are in the billions. So you're just like, if you're looking at the adult entertainment industry, it's hundreds of billions of visits. And you have these sites where in certain jurisdictions for certain types of content, there will be session-based verification required. So obviously for dating sites, typically it's account-based. So you're not having to re-verify people all the time unless regulators require for certain access to certain features. Certain regulators may require, future verifications. But either way, as an industry, if you're looking at an industry where typically a user will be subscribing to two or more dating applications, well, what is the logic of having that user do a verification over and over again? Because each of these platforms will have had to pay a third party anywhere from 10, 20, 30, sometimes $1 for the verification of that user. That's a very real cost if you don't know if that user is necessarily subscribing and you're able to monetize. And so like you have some real issues in terms of just thinking of like, what is my cost of acquisition of a customer? And then that person churns and then I have to re-verify them. But if all of this industry alone just came together and just said like, hey, why don't we make it interoperable? So if I've verified on this service, then that user can, reuse that verification on another service. And if people move in, and everybody's like, yeah, well, why would I pay for the cost of verification to give it to my competitor? Which I think is not the way to look at it, because the reality is that you would have to pay for that verification regardless. And if you can get multiple platforms at the same time to embrace interoperability, everybody wins. And this is what we're seeing with OpenAge. And by the way, here's a great advantage. If you take something that is truly interoperable, it isn't interoperable just within online dating services. It is interoperable across the web. And so age keys that will be used from everything from adult entertainment to Meta to a number of social media platforms that are rolling out age keys right now to gaming companies such as Konami and others that are all adopting age keys. Essentially, it isn't very hard to cover the internet multiple times over. The monthly active users of the various platforms that we have signed up to OpenAge are, I think we're like, I mean, if I accumulate what each of these services have together, I think we're like at 8 billion monthly active users. So more than the total population, right? Because there's a lot of duplicates. A lot of these people have the same users. And so that is what the promise of interoperability is, which is, let's say you have 500 million, users that are now across 6 or 8 services. That's billions right there. And so I think that's how you need to look at it, which is your actual user base in the UK. I have no idea what it is. You probably have the stats, Simon. But let's say there are 15, 20 million people in the UK that at some point or another visit an online dating service. I don't know what the number. What is the number? Do you know?
Ofcom say about 5 million, so about 1 in 10.
Okay, 5 million. Okay. Yeah, I guess, yeah, because of age. Okay, so, you have 5 million people, but, those 5 million people are also users of Instagram or
Absolutely.
Threads. They have also gone on, they've played like eFootball or, any other service. Like there's a whole bunch of things that these people would have done where they would have had an opportunity to create an H key. And then if the, online dating industry were to embrace interoperability, that reduces the pain for each of them individually. They've already benefited from H keys created elsewhere. They themselves will create H keys that will benefit users elsewhere. And they're signaling to their user base that we put user centricity at the heart of what we're doing. We're saying we trust our users with their own data. And this is a way to turn something that has been a pain point into something that is empowering for their user base and communicating very strongly around issues of privacy that are at the forefront of the concerns of their users, and enables these platforms to really be leaders in this space, and rather than be in a position of reacting and in fear and concern, actually have a leadership position around this, which in turn, is well viewed by the regulators, who want to see essentially more compliance and want to embrace interoperability. I was just listening to the beginning of these panels at the FTC workshop, and within the first 10 minutes, there were already like 3 mentions of interoperability. Interoperability is coming. It's the way forward. And we think that the more organizations that understand that if they step up and embrace interoperability, the more gains there are for the internet at large.
So, and just on that, so there were two things. One, I think, was just a confirmation of the point about interoperability and particularly international kind of borders. So just to confirm, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. This is, effectively, once you've got your token, you could use it if you're based in the UK for a site that was in France, depending on the age assurance or the age restrictions or requirements over there. So interoperability is basically the whole World Wide Web. Is that right? Rather than
Yeah, so I mean, it's cross-platform and cross borders. Now,
brilliant.
each jurisdiction may have some requirements in terms of what they consider to be highly effective or what are the forms of age assurance that they want. So let's say you have created age key based on facial age estimation in the UK, and now you want to use this in the US, and you're in a state that says you cannot use facial age estimation, then the age key returns saying, you do not meet the threshold for
Sure.
this service, and now you have an opportunity to upgrade it to like an IDV or digital ID or something. So these are scenarios. Having said that, we're talking about like already edge cases. People tend to be within the country that they have
Absolutely.
verified
Yeah.
and use the services there. So naturally, the edge keys that of the user base have been created within that same jurisdiction. So your matching ends up being pretty high in terms of what is required. But it remains the responsibility of relying parties to decide what are the methods, providers, and recency that they accept as an age signal. And so you as a service may say, this other service may have like lower, less risk content or different thresholds or different internal risk assessments. And that should be the decision of each relying party and each service to determine what are the age signals that they want to accept, which age key enables. And then the point is that you say, okay, well, for instance, things that are not based off true age signals. So if you have like a digital ID as the underlying source of your age key, then you actually have the age. And that's great. And it's like you just get 18. Now, age estimation is more complicated because you have buffer ages, right? So let's say most verification age estimation providers will say that they are accurate within plus or minus 2 years to a certain percentage, which is acceptable by the regulator. So that means it's not 100%. So you are going to get some false negatives, false positives. And then you have a buffer age. So now you have a user that is, 19. And so let's say, they're trying to get through, but the service is going to say, no, I need an age signal that is 20 or above if it's an estimation in order to let you through. And obviously for dating sites, these threshold ages are, an issue. You'll have dating sites where you have like, an average of, 35 plus and whatever. All of those people will go through relatively easy. But if you are on a dating site that is targeting, younger audiences, these threshold ages become a real point of concern and friction because now what do you do? This person is 19, they should be allowed in. The age estimation is saying, yes, we think you're 19, but you are within a zone of error. And so now you need to waterfall them down to another higher level of verification, which creates like a lot of friction and cost and pain. And so these are very real issues, which I think why digital IDs that are a concern for a lot of citizens actually provide at least a true age signal. And our view is it is natural for users to not want to have to present their full digital ID in circumstances where the only thing they're trying to provide is an age assurance, is just saying, I am of age. And the way these things are designed is that they're supposed to be data minimized, right? So if you're presenting a digital ID, the requesting site, the only thing they need to know is, are you of age? Then the digital ID should only send that information. But I think users are concerned that something that has a lot of personal identifiable information has to be presented in the first place. And so this is why OpenAge and AgeKeys are offering an ability to create an age key off a digital ID. And what that means is that you now have something that the only information it contains is the age threshold. And there is no personal identifiable information. And so right now, like that, you have the ability to just present that age credential and knowing that you don't even have to present the digital ID. But because the digital ID was the source of that age signal, it is a highly trusted, highly secure age signal that is the underlying one. And you're not dealing with issues of estimation because you have like a true age, which is the underlying signal. I'm sorry, I might be getting super technical here. I don't
No,
know
no, it's
exactly in the audience if this is interesting or not.
incredibly helpful. I know, our audience, I'm sure, will find the same as well. I mean, I think the point that you raised, there's a couple of things in particular which were really, really valid. I mean, we know, in fact, one of our members has actually withdrawn from kind of the market offering, dating services between 18 to 25-year-olds because the additional work that's required to verify their age. So it's had a detrimental impact in that way. Just a bit before that, you were talking about kind of the sector working together and that closer collaboration and interoperability. How can we do that? What can our sector do to make sure that it works more closely together? Is there any advice or suggestions that you can share with us that would be really helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I think, back to your question that you're asking me of like the different approaches of adult entertainment sites, so that some that are deciding to remove themselves completely from the market versus, as I was illustrating, what Free Speech Coalition is advocating for now is saying it's time to comply, but let's do it in a way that is the right way. And I think the age assurance mandates are not going away. If they're going to increase, and as so the idea of just removing oneself from markets is a losing proposition. And then you have the example that you just gave of your member that just said, we're just going to only start at 25 plus because it's just too painful otherwise. And I think this is, that is a fail of technology. Like we need to solve this because a user that is of required age should have the freedom and right to be able to explore, this dating site. And like the idea that they no longer have access because of the friction created from the age assurance is not good. It's a fail. It's because the technology of age estimation isn't precise enough. And so I think the important thing is making sure that there are tools so that all types of sites can deliver the right experience for their users at the age that these users have a right to do it. And so I think in terms of how you come together is that you lay out like these kind of issues and we're like, okay, what are pragmatic responses of how this can be dealt with? Because I think that site should be able to satisfy users of a younger age. I think if they were to use age keys, they would see an improvement in that regard. But you are always, if the underlying signal are age estimations, they do not want to take the risk. And the 25 plus is like the 99.9% level of assurance that there won't be a minor that is was in that site. And I get it. I mean, KID has clients that have also set their threshold when it comes to age estimation at 25, which is, when you're thinking of the number of users on the internet that you are now excluding that should have a right to access that content, that is really something that needs to be solved. It's something that we at OpenAge feel very strongly, and why we are doing all of the integrations with digital IDs is to ensure that we really minimize these use cases and provide very easy paths for people to be able to verify that aren't a burden on the platform, that aren't a cost for the platform, to be able to bring these users on board. And OpenAge functions on a cost recovery model. So because we're not trying to make money on this, so the cost is $3,000 per million authentication. So it's like 1/50th of, or to 1/100th of the costs that are typically associated with a verification. So, 95% gain on the time to onboard and verify a user, and 1/50th to 1/100th of the cost. It's like, okay, like you're dramatically reducing the issues that are faced around these, and we think that's the only path forward.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm just going to come to a question in a second, but I think that's a really useful point. I mean, we talked about cost being a barrier, and there has been quite a lot of movement in the last 12 months on cost in general. But bearing in mind that a lot of sites, not just in the dating or social discovery sector, but also social media, don't offer subscriptions where you could incorporate that cost as part of that subscription charge. They rely on income generated from other sources such as advertising, and so any cost obviously then comes out of the bottom line. And as we know, user revenue is generally quite low in terms of the margin. So I think that's a really good point. Rob's put a question in the chat, and I do want to perhaps just highlight that. And again, just a sort of an invitation for anyone else who wants to raise a question today for Julian. We've got just over 10 minutes left. So Rob's question, which I think you can see, is what data does the age key contain as to the means by which it was established for audit trail, and how is the credential maintained over time, as several regulators are expecting? That seems like quite a specific question, Julian.
Love it, Rob. Like really into the weeds here. Awesome. But it's an excellent question because essentially, if a relying party is using an age signal, they need to understand, like, what is this age signal that we're accepting, and will this age signal be one that we can trust, that is regulatory supported. And so what the information, so there's some underlying data of when that age key is created. The core information that was in there is what is the provider of that. So was this age key created using Persona, Encode, Yoti, Veritad, KID? So like, who was the underlying provider of that? What was the method that was used? Was this a facial age estimation? Was it an IDV verification? Was it a digital ID? So you can know, is this one of the methods that is considered highly effective? And finally, what was the recency of that? And the contributors to age keys today are only highly certified, ACCS certified and regulatory approved age key creators. We're not bringing in somebody who has vibe coded and age estimation technology here. So, these are all, ones that are widely accepted by major platforms. But the relying party may still say, like, for whatever reason, we don't want, this provider or method. typically because of jurisdictional requirements, and then they use that. What the relying party sees on their side is they get to say ahead of time, they say, here is when the age key is requested, it sends the information and says to the age key, okay, we accept this age key with this buffer age for, let's say, for facial age estimation. So we accept facial age estimation. We accept facial age estimation with this buffer age from these providers and with this level of recency. And then the age key answers yay, nay. That's it. It's just above or below the threshold of what is required. The age key itself does contain the actual age, right? So when it's recorded, the facial age estimation will say, we think it is 19 with a plus or minus level of certainty, or the digital ID replies, this person is, 18 and 3 months. But that is not communicated back to the relying party. What is communicated back to the relying party is the relying party asks a question, is this user above the age of 18? And it's a yay if it's an 18 year and 3 months based on a digital ID. And it's a uncertain if it is a 19-year-old off facial age estimation because of the buffer age that's sort of set.
Fantastic. Another question, in fact, a couple of questions really, but on a very similar point, which is in terms of price. I know David there is saying, a question around, is there a price point that is acceptable? I'm not sure there's a question to the sector more broadly, and I think the answer to that probably it depends. But related to that, we've got a point underneath just saying, on paper, it's exactly what the dating industry has been calling for, which is great to hear. Our users are across multiple apps, and this will allow interoperability, privacy, and solve age assurance issues in the individual's opinion there. And there's just a question there: what is the cost for 1 million age keys? Are you able to sort of? I think you did touch on that earlier, but just to highlight again would be really helpful.
So OpenAge as a open framework, it provides the same price to everyone as an orchestrator. So it's like fixed for the entire industry, and that's $3,000 per million. So that's a third of a cent
Wow.
per authentication. Now, orchestrators, such as, let's say, a verification provider that is providing full service suite to a relying party, they have like overhead and other stuff that they're doing, and they're managing the flow. So they're saying like, okay, well, we're going to provide like facial age estimation and IDV and an option for people to just use their age key. And so they may charge differently for that. But an OpenAge sells to all orchestrators. So large sites that are their own orchestrators can contact, I think we have Kemi on this line, can contact Kemi directly, and they can join directly the OpenAge Initiative, and they will have access to age keys at $3,000 US per million verifications. We also, and so that's it. I think the cost is a big
Yeah.
concern, is like the cost of the initial verification, which it depends on the verification providers that are used. And so Persona will have a price and Yoti will have a price.
Yeah. But as you said, the point there, Julian, wasn't it, that people live their lives online, and so if they're using Instagram, Meta, or another social media
Exactly.
site, they may well have gone through that process, and therefore the cost actually to a dating or social discovery site could be as you say, a third of a cent,
Significantly lower.
which is a real.
Significantly lower. So I think it's really one of the fundamental issues that are addressed here, which is really reducing that cost. We do also have a number of verifications that we provide where when people adopt, age keys, there's a
Yeah.
slightly higher cost of age keys, which I think is like $6,000 per million, which includes a bunch of verification methods that are highly certified and authenticated. But still, it's a sixth of a cent as opposed to like, 15
Yeah.
cents or 20 cents or whatever. So, and those are things that we can help on. We also think that we're going towards, again, like digital IDs, there won't be the cost associated with that. And so there's a number of sources of signal that can dramatically reduce the cost for the members. But if you have members who are interested, Kemi would be thrilled to help out and find
Brilliant.
practical solutions that meet each of their budgets.
And Just on that, Camille, I wonder if you'd be very kind to put your email address perhaps in the chat. So if people joining us on the webinar today would be interested in contacting you, then you can do that directly. We'll also put an email out to everyone who registered for the webinar as well, with your contact details on, because I think that's really important. And just on the cost front, of course, in US dollars, the pound's very strong against the dollar at the moment. So it
Even
works out more
better.
cost effective, even better. We're just coming up towards the end. We've got a few minutes left, and I just perhaps, Julian, want you to kind of get at your crystal ball out here, really, and look at what the next 12 months looks like, both in terms of this broader area, in terms of age assurance, but also in terms of OpenAge and age keys. In the last 12 months, things have changed massively. I can remember speaking at a conference in Lille last year, and things were very different. And it's been fantastic to see innovation in the sector. There are some fantastic products out there. You're all over this. I'm just really keen to get your thoughts on what the future looks like.
I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist because I think that right now is really just about one of the most painful lowest points in terms of like all of these new regulations coming in, no clarity on what are the methods that are necessary accepted, very high level costs, business models that don't match the reality of the internet, users that are angry of having to verify when they have not done it before, platforms that have maybe relied on certain metrics or audiences that like are not necessarily ones that they can actually monetize, the burden of compliance risk, their legal cost, navigating all of this, the amount of time, it's just like so hard. But but what are we looking at going forward? I think we're looking at an age-appropriate internet for everyone. That's a win for society. The
Yeah.
internet is a wonderful thing for younger audiences, and the idea of banning children from the internet is on its face, not the way to go. What we want is to create experiences that are appropriate for each age. And to do that, we need to start having an age signal that we can trust. I think the very rapid move that we have seen around interoperability and common frameworks gives me hope that we are actually going to come together and find common sense solutions that actually match what users' demands are and what platforms require in order to be able to navigate this complex world. And so there's going to be a few years that are going to be complicated. I'm not, there's going to be some friction here. But if we look at, a problem that, I guess started like a kind of a decade ago when we started realizing that there were some issues, and then in the last 5 years became a very pressing issue, and in the last couple of years has become like a top level issue, and in the last 6 months has become a screaming top level. You can't open a newspaper, listen to a podcast when the issue of children online it isn't a topic. But this level of realization means that I think that we have moved from the debate of like it's wrong, it shouldn't happen, to it's happening. Now let's try and do it the right way.
Mm.
And over, I think if we look forward a few years from now, some things that seem very strange to people are just going to become, very natural. And we can see this with like a lot of regulations through our lifetime, like wearing seatbelts in cars, which was like, I guess optional at some point in the 60s or whatever. Now nobody would not do it. Driving way beyond the speed limits. I grew up in France. Everybody was going like 60 miles per hour faster than the speed limit. Nobody does that. Smoking in airports. Nobody does that. Like there are things which were not allowed but not necessarily implemented and respected. And then it just becomes part of how we operate as a civil society. Recognizing that there are children online is something that we need to deal with in a positive outlook. And we can get there by implementing common sense, interoperable, reusable, privacy preserving, and frictionless ways to solve these problems. I
Great.
noticed that Kemi had sent her email, but she only has access to the host and panelists. So if you
Oh,
could resend it to the wider group,
yeah,
so
we'll
people can contact Kemi if they want further
absolutely.
information.
Yeah, I think no, that's a great point. Well spotted. Yeah, no, thank you, Julian. That was a really great observation, and also I'm glad you're an optimist in this area. I think just reflecting, we're still very much in that first year, aren't we, of the implementation of the bulk of the Online Safety Act. And as you said, Ofcom have done a fantastic job in engaging, which is brilliant, and listened, and obviously capturing evidence about what works and what doesn't, and refining guidance as they go through. But I think it's certainly we're in a much stronger position than we were than a year ago, and initiatives like you've described today and age keys as well is a really exciting way forward. So really fantastic. We've come to the end of our session today. Just wanted to say a massive thank you to Julian and also to Camille as well. Really, really interesting discussion on one of the hottest topics, and I'm sure we will revisit this again in the next few months as things evolve. And we're very keen to hear more about the initiative that Julian's spoken about in more detail. Just a reminder, of course, we are recording this webinar, and we'll make available a copy of it, and we will also circulate as well the details for Julian and Camille. So if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to contact them to find out further information. So just really leaves me to say a massive thank you to everyone joining us today. We're off now to go and join the Federal Trade Commission workshop, which I'm really looking forward to seeing what the debate is going on there. And I hope you all have a wonderful day wherever you're in the world. And thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.